In July of 2022, 3 female bison walked out of a trailer and into an ancient woodland on the outskirts of Canterbury in the south of England. It was the first time wild bison had stood on British soil in thousands of years. 3 animals, all female, and by design, no bull. The males of this species are classified under British law as dangerous wild animals, and the bull meant for this herd was still stuck somewhere in the machinery of post-Brexit import paperwork, not expected for months. So the people running this project knew exactly what the first year would look like. 3 females settling into the woods. No breeding, no calves, not until the bull finally cleared customs. That is not what happened. About 8 weeks after the release, a ranger doing a routine check noticed something wrong. One of the 3 females, normally the confident one, always near the front, had vanished from the group. For a couple of days, nobody could find her. In a project this scrutinized, a missing bison is an emergency. When they finally located her, she wasn't alone. There was a calf, a wild bison, born in an English wood, months before the only male in the country had even arrived. How that was possible, what it revealed about an animal that had been hunted out of existence twice over, and what those few founders would go on to do to a dying forest, to the point the conservationists ended up spending £1 million building the animals their own bridges, is the whole of this story. This is how a struggling commercial timber plantation in one of the most crowded corners of England became the stage for the most ambitious rewilding experiment the country has ever attempted, and how a handful of bison, working without a single machine, started rebuilding a woodland that decades of human management had quietly broken. But to understand why anyone would release a 1-ton animal into the English countryside in the first place, you have to understand 2 things: what this forest had become, and what this animal actually does. Start with the animal, because the European bison almost didn't survive to be in this story at all. This is the largest land mammal in Europe. A bull can weigh close to a ton, and after the First World War, through hunting and habitat loss and the chaos that followed, the entire species collapsed. By the 1920s, the European bison was extinct in the wild, gone. Every single one that remained alive on Earth, around a dozen animals, lived in private collections and zoos. The entire species today, every European bison alive, descends from that tiny founding handful, painstakingly bred back from the edge over a century. It is one of the quietest and most remarkable rescues in conservation history. The species has clawed its way from extinct in the wild back to a status the conservation world now calls near threatened, an upgrade that sounds modest until you remember where it started. So these aren't just large animals. Each one is a thread in a genetic line that the 20th century nearly cut entirely. But that history isn't why they were brought to Kent. They were brought because of what bison do. A bison is not a lawnmower. It's a disruption engine. It rubs its enormous bulk against trees until the bark strips away, and that standing deadwood becomes a high-rise for insects, for the birds that eat them, for bats. It rolls in the dirt, carving out dust baths, shallow bare hollows that collect water and become habitat for amphibians and burrowing insects in ground that was otherwise closed and shaded. It shoulders through dense thicket, snapping and trampling, tearing open corridors that let sunlight hit a forest floor that hasn't seen it in years. And every one of those behaviors happens for free. No chainsaws, no diggers, no diesel. The bison does the work of a whole forestry crew simply by being a bison. Conservationists have a name for an animal like this: an ecosystem engineer, a creature that doesn't just live in a habitat. It physically builds the conditions that let dozens of other species move in behind it. Which brings us to the forest that needed exactly that. West Blean and Thorndon Woods is ancient woodland, one of the larger surviving blocks of old forest in England. On paper, it sounds pristine. In reality, much of it had been quietly hollowed out. For decades, large sections had been managed as a commercial plantation, planted thick with non-native conifers grown for timber. And a dense, even-aged stand of planted conifer is ecologically close to a desert. The canopy locks shut overhead. Almost no light reaches the ground. The varied, messy, layered structure that woodland wildlife actually depends on. The glades, the dead wood, the scrub, the open sunny patches get squeezed out, replaced by uniform rows of the same tree. This is the part that doesn't make headlines because it doesn't look like destruction. There were still trees. It was still green. To a passing walker, it looked like a forest. But a forest can be standing and still be failing. The species that should have filled it, the woodland butterflies, the nightingales, the insects that need open ground and rotting wood, were thinning out because the structure they needed was gone. The woodland had become tidy, uniform, and quiet in an ecosystem is rarely a good sign. The traditional fix would be to send in people and machines year after year, forever, cutting, clearing, managing the woodland by hand at enormous and permanent cost. The team behind this project asked a different question. What if, instead of managing the forest ourselves indefinitely, we put back the animal that used to do it and let it run? That project became the Wilder Blean Initiative, a partnership between Kent Wildlife Trust and the Wildwood Trust, and the first time anyone had released free-roaming bison into the British countryside. Nothing about it was casual. Because European bison are classified in UK law as dangerous wild animals, the team couldn't simply open a gate. They had to wrap the bison's range in roughly 43 kilometers of fencing to keep the animals and the public safely apart. The site was licensed for a maximum of 10 bison. And the founders were chosen like a genetic portfolio. A 19-year-old matriarch brought down from Scotland and 2 younger females from Ireland, each selected to carry valuable bloodlines for the wider European breeding program. In July 2022, those 3 females were released. The bull, the only one who could actually start a herd, was coming from Germany. And he was late. His arrival had been tangled up in the customs and paperwork complications that followed Britain's exit from the European Union. He wasn't expected until the autumn at the earliest. So the plan for year 1 was simple and patient. Let the 3 females settle. Let them learn the woods. Wait for the bull. Breeding could come next year. The bison had other ideas. Here's what the team didn't know. One of the 2 females from Ireland had arrived already pregnant. She had been carrying a calf before she ever set foot in England, and nobody realized it. And the reason nobody realized it gets to something genuinely strange about this animal. Bison conceal their pregnancies. Unlike domestic cattle, which show obvious signs, a pregnant bison gives almost nothing away. It's thought to be an ancient anti-predator instinct. A vulnerable, visibly pregnant animal is a target, so the species evolved to simply not show it. So when that confident young female disappeared from the group for a couple of days that September, the ranger's alarm was real. And when they found her, standing with a newborn calf at her side, it was a complete shock. The first wild bison born in Britain for thousands of years had arrived, before the bull. Before the project's actual breeding program had even begun. The team had released 3 animals and without planning it, ended up with 4. And then finally, in December of 2022, just before Christmas, the long-delayed bull cleared his paperwork and was released from Germany into the Kent woods at last. He did not waste time. The following winter, the matriarch, the 19-year-old from Scotland, an animal the team knew had struggled with a previous pregnancy years before, gave birth to a male calf in the woodland under daily observation, healthy. After that, the 2 Irish females calved as well, sired by the bull. Calf after calf across successive seasons. A founding group of 4, 3 females, and 1 Brexit-delayed bull, had become a multi-generational herd. Genetically valuable young bison, born wild in England, now feeding into the same European breeding program that had hauled the species back from a dozen survivors a century earlier. The herd was, by every measure, thriving. And that success created a problem the team had actually been hoping for. Because while all of this was happening, the bison were confined to roughly 50 hectares of the woodland, a fraction of the forest they were meant to be transforming. A growing, breeding herd was now too big and too contained for the space it had. The bison needed more room. The trouble was, the rest of that woodland wasn't empty. It was laced with public footpaths, walking routes that local people had used for generations. You cannot simply turn 1-ton wild animals loose across the same paths where families walk their dogs. The obvious answer was to fence the people out, or fence the bison into ever smaller pens. The team chose to do something almost comically ambitious instead. They decided to build the bison their own bridges, not bridges for the animals to cross. Bridges that lift the people up and over, letting the public footpath rise onto an elevated walkway while the bison roam freely underneath through corridors of woodland that the path used to block. Humans on top, bison below, the two never meeting. This had never been done in Britain before. They became the UK's first ever bison bridges. 4 of them, granted planning permission after detailed deliberation, at a total cost of around £1 million, roughly £250,000 each, funded through the National Lottery Heritage Fund, a National Highways Nature Program, and a string of foundations and private donors. Sit with the strangeness of that for a second. To rewild a forest using an animal, specifically because it works without human machinery and infrastructure, the team had to build £1 million of human infrastructure, steel, engineering, viewing platforms. But that contradiction is the entire point, and the people behind it say so openly. They know the fences and the bridges are, in a sense, the opposite of true wildness. They've said as much. Their argument is that current British law isn't built for free-roaming megafauna yet. So to make the case for changing it, somebody has to go first and prove the thing can be done safely, in public, in one of the most crowded landscapes in Europe. The bridges aren't the destination. They're a demonstration, a blueprint, in their words, for others to follow. And once the herd had access through them, its working range would expand from those cramped 50 hectares to 200. 4 times the forest for the engineers to rebuild. So is it actually working? Is a handful of bison really enough to change a forest? The honest answer for Bleen specifically is that it's still early. This is a project measured in decades, not seasons, and the full transformation will take years to read. But the early signs on the ground are the ones the team hoped for. Bark-stripped trees turning into deadwood habitat, dust baths opening bare ground, sunlight reaching the floor of a canopy that used to be sealed. And there's harder evidence from elsewhere about just how powerful this animal's effect can be. A study of a reintroduced bison herd in the Țarcu Mountains of Romania estimated that a group of around 170 bison was helping to capture and lock away carbon, on a scale researchers compared to taking tens of thousands of cars off the road, by reshaping how the landscape grows and stores it. That's a different country and a different landscape, so it's not a one-to-one prediction for a Kent woodland, but it tells you the direction of the effect. When you return this animal to a system it evolved to shape, the changes aren't cosmetic. They reach all the way down into the soil and the carbon and the structure of the place. The team's own framing is the one worth keeping. Their wildlife, they say, is in trouble, and the old ways of doing conservation, by hand and by machine, forever, aren't keeping up. Bleen is their argument that there might be a better way, slower, stranger, run by the animals themselves. But the image I keep coming back to isn't the bridges, or the carbon, or the data. It's that first calf. 3 female bison were carried into an English wood with no male anywhere in the country, under a plan that said clearly, "Not this year." And the forest produced a wild-born bison anyway, quietly in secret, the way the species has hidden its young from predators for longer than there have been people in Britain to see it. For thousands of years there had been no wild bison born on this island. No one alive had watched it happen. And then a ranger walked into the woods on an ordinary morning looking for a missing animal and found that the gap had already closed. The next generation was simply there, standing in the trees, as though it had been waiting for someone to notice. The forest didn't wait for permission. It didn't wait for the bull or the paperwork or the plan. It just started again. We tend to think recovery is something we engineer, that we plan it, schedule it, control it. Bleen keeps suggesting something humbler. The team didn't rebuild that forest. They couldn't. No crew with chainsaws can do what a bison does by rolling in the dirt. What they did was make a decision, take a risk in a place where it had never been tried, put the animal back, and then build, of all things, a set of bridges to get themselves out of its way. After that, the bison stopped following the plan entirely. They bred before they were supposed to. They outgrew the space we gave them, and they went to work on a dying woodland using tools we don't have and never will. We didn't wake that forest up. We returned the animal that knew how, and then climbed up onto a bridge to watch it happen. If this changed how you think about what's actually possible, about whether a tidy, failing, silent forest can be brought back to life by the thing we removed from it, tell me in the comments, and tell me which lost giant you think we should be bringing home next. If it moved you, share it with someone who still pictures bison only on the American plains. And subscribe, because there are far more of these comebacks unfolding right now than you'd ever guess. And I've got plenty more to tell you. Thanks for watching.